computers. Okay, we're going to transition now into the activities part of it. And some of these activities are updated, and we really hope that some of them are new to you. One of the things that I think makes any of your programs more robust is if you fill them with activities. People learn by doing. And I would say that people learn best when they're relaxed, when they are having a little bit of fun. And the activities section of your presentations really can help that part. Now, first thing that we're going to talk about when you start getting ready for a session, it involves some planning, right? And it's in your best interest to spend a little time planning right off the bat. Who is your audience? Like, who are you working with? What is the objective that you are trying to achieve? Once you have an idea of where you're going, it's going to be easy for you to fill in the groups. Time, obviously, is the biggest thing second biggest thing you're going to need to know is how much time do you have? Because once you figure that out, you can then start to say, oh, well, I'll have this many activities or not. Along with the planning, you're going to need to know your logistics, all the materials that you need, all those little details that are involved with planning. So I don't need to say any more about that. That kind of sets you up. Okay. When you get started in your session, we always recommend do some sort of an icebreaker. I think that the icebreaker piece really helps people relax. I'm going to give you a couple different examples of icebreakers. Now, you can go on the internet and Google icebreakers, and there's always, hey, 50 of the best icebreakers, 50 of the not boring icebreakers. Obviously, check it out, see what works. This is the first icebreaker that I'm going to give you that has a little bit of a DISC correlation. We call it draw your ideal office space. The material that you need is just a piece of paper, and you don't give a lot of directions. You just say, hey, draw your ideal office space. Give them 5 minutes and see what comes up. In essence, what will happen is people most likely will draw well, you'll get a variety of things, but they will draw things that line up with behaviors that they prefer. And so that will line up with their DISC style. Now, I'm telling you, it is not perfect. It's not always going to get to be like that. But these are two examples, like real examples that we have had. The visual on the left, where you see the office at the beach with her 2 little dogs, and she's in a palm tree. This happened to be an S style in one of our classes. And the one on the right that has everything labeled and everything tickety-boo was an example that I thought ideally represented the C style. I even love the fact that they have the door entry with the little triangle pointing, so you know exactly where you're standing. We start off with this, but you can actually then have them put it away, and just before you're going to give them their DISC assessment, have them start to talk about it, describe what is their ideal office space, and then have them look at their report. Does that line up with an office space of that style?
Yeah. And what I love about icebreakers, it also sets the tone that, you're not here just to kind of sit back passively, that there's going to be a lot of interaction, and fun interaction.
Yes. Okay. So I added this one in. I built it around Christina. This is not necessarily a DISC specific DISC icebreaker, but what I really like about this is that if you're working with teams, which generally speaking, we hear a lot of that. One of the great things is to get to know your teammates a little bit better by revealing. So this is a really quick one where you say, write your name on your, you don't have to have an intact team. It could be a group of people. Write your name on the front of your tent cart, and then give us 3 things that you could either say, we don't know about you, or three things that you'd like to share about yourself. So I've actually created for Christina 3 things about her that we can share. First one is she's an amazing cook. The second one is, see that teeny weeny itty bitty little dog? She has one of these itty bitty little dogs like that's about 6 pounds. And then to the right, her beautiful family. Now, it's a reveal, and one of the nice things about the reveal is you learn a little bit more about your teammate. If, in fact, things start to go south on a team, when you know a little bit more and you humanize that coworker, you are often able to give them a little bit more slack. Okay, we're going to move into the step one. Christina mentioned numerous times about the 4 steps to effective interaction. We always touch on the 4 steps whenever we're doing a training, regardless of how much time we have. If we just have an hour, we'll be going fast, but we always somehow touch on the 4 steps. So step 1 is understanding the DISC styles. Really what you want to do in this section of your training primarily is reinforcement. That's a really important part of understanding the model, because when you understand the model, it's the building blocks to the rest of the steps. I always think these are 5 key elements that you want to reinforce, having people understand the motto of that style, a few attributes, what happens to the style under pressure, because quite often when things are going south, that's really the time where we have to try harder. So by recognizing how that person responds or reacts under pressure, you'll be able to quickly identify what their fear is and a favorite question, all helping you along the way.
And usually what, Wilma and I will do in a session is we're not asking you to pull these out of, anything. We talk about all these things, and it's not just so it's getting people not just to see it and hear it, it's getting them to actively write it down. It just helps with retention too, right?
Right. So. That's absolutely true. So step 1, we have videos. They're each 2 minutes that represent DIS and C. I always use the videos in terms of whether I use them in the class, maybe, but if I don't, I send them out as reinforcement. And I may even partner the videos with that worksheet. But by the way, Christina has that VIP site locked down. If there's a worksheet on this webinar, it is in our VIP site. So I would partner those 2 and have them watch the videos at home and fill it out, or during a class, reinforcement.
And what's great about them, they're only 2 to 3 minutes long. So
yeah, 8 minutes. It's 8 minutes of your class. I always say if you're doing a 1-hour session, you use the videos, because that is 8 minutes and you have 52 more minutes to get to the other 3 stages. Okay. Another tool that we would use in step 1 is another way to reinforce it, and that's asking questions. And it's just a quick check-in. And as a facilitator, when you do a quick check-in at this point, you're going to start to gauge what's the uptake. How are they doing? If they're getting your questions, well, you probably don't have to reinforce it as much, and you can move to another section. If not, you probably have to maybe come up with a few other ways of teaching that. I like to, if you have a longer session, this is an example of a little YouTube where you'll play maybe a 60-second YouTube of, I use The Office for mine. And what that does is Dwight happens to be a D style. And I would show the 60-second video of Dwight and then ask, what do you see here? And it's just another modality that you're introducing to your session, which creates interest, right? The Office is quite often funny, so people will laugh, and then they can say, oh, well, I see the behavior of a D style.
And I just want to remind people, when whether the people know Dwight or not, or whether when people explain, name characters that we may not know, we actually as trainers are not listening, are not worried about who they're actually identifying. What we're listening for is how they're identifying. Are they using the right words that associate with the DISC styles? So
yes,
yeah, that's just a reminder. Don't panic if like someone's never seen The Office or doesn't know Harry Potter. So
that's absolutely true. Okay, so once you've gone through step 1 on DIS and C, people are going to start thinking, okay, because people will think always through the lens of themselves. Oh, well, where do I show up? So you might ask them at the end, they've been exposed to DIS and C. Tell me, write your name where you think your dominant style is or where your primary style is, and have them come up and write their name. Because when the reveal happens, when they actually get their assessment, they can see, oh, gee, I was off, or I was right on. But that's another way. Now, we have this flip chart paper that's beautiful and it's all marked out and color coded. But if you don't, you can use your flip chart paper and make a mock-up of, D, I, S, and C with the, quadrants obvious. Okay, we're going to move to step 2. Step 2 is when you're moving to utilizing the report, right? Using your DISC results to better understand your style. This is the part where you start to jump into the self-awareness. We would say the most successful people are people that work on their self-awareness, that recognize they have strengths, that recognize that they have opportunities, and most importantly, have a willingness to adjust. So this is the aha moment in the session where people start to get to know themselves, because remember, they've answered the questions about themselves. So it's really feedback that they've given themselves.
And honestly, these individual and self-development reports that we have, it's almost like it is your agenda. I mean, there's a workbook built into it, and there's activities that Wilma's going to share with you today, but it's also based on the 4 steps. So if you're actually using the report itself is based on the 4 steps. And we can specifically break down the pages if you even needed us to do that. But we can tell you which part of the report, step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 4. So it in itself is a teaching guide.
Right. One of the things that I would suggest right off the bat is you get people working in the report.
Mm-hmm.
So get their pen out, and right off the bat, I have them in big block letters, write, get curious or be curious about the report. You want them to interact with the report. So in step 2, all of the pretty much, except one of the activities, I would say, are within the report. So this is the you at a glance. It is a summary page in the report of a number of sections in the report. I always do this exercise when I'm doing a debrief, whether I'm doing a one-on-one coaching or I'm working with a whole team. And in this section right here, where it says how others may perceive you, there is a list of attributes. And every one of these attributes, I would say, is in their wheelhouse, in their sweet spot, work for them. But what I say to them is, please pick 3,
Keep going.
3 attributes, right? Pick 3 attributes that help you be successful in your current role. You get them to underline in the report, get them working in that report. Then have the group, if you have a super large group, pair them up. But if you have a group of like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, have them say them out loud. So say I said I'm strong-willed, decisive, and alert. And we all went around saying our 3 attributes. Well, here's the rub. It is not your weaknesses that typically get you into trouble. It's the overuse of your strength. It's when you become too much of your sweet self. So the aha moment is when they repeat again, when I'm too strong-willed, too decisive, too alert. Now, the majority of time that those attributes serve me well until they don't. And most people, it will resonate that they can become too much of themselves. So remember, this is a strength-based assessment, and this 2 factor or the 2 effect resonates throughout. When you overuse your strength, rendering it a weakness.
Can I show them one way I do it too?
Yep.
So I do a variation of kind of what Wilma was saying. I actually have people also, and I sometimes do both of them, but I have people also look at this page. We spend a little bit of time on it. I have them read through the whole thing, not just the how others may perceive you. And I ask them to put a X next to the ones that like, or a check mark next to the ones that, oh, this totally describes me. So me, right? And then I ask them to put a question mark next to the statements or words that they're like, I don't know, not sure. I don't think so. And really what we're trying to do, as Wilma said, is we're trying to get people to not only interact with the report, but once they start taking notes, they begin to kind of mentally process it. Sometimes we're just reactive, like, "Ugh, no, that's not me." But then later we come back and we're like, okay, I kind of see this now. And what's great is when you're making notes in the report, now you're able to share that with people who know you well. So as Wilma says, don't just give it to one person, give it to many people that know you.
Okay.
And ask for feedback and say, hey, I made notes in it, those check marks, this is, I think they're me, and these question marks, I don't think they were me. And ask for feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. Two other things that we would encourage you to do. Firstly, is when you get to the behavioral competency section of the report, all the reports have a behavioral competency. So this one here is communication. One of the ways that we do it is have them read the competencies, boom. Pick one or two, right? I think this one has two. Pick two competencies that you need in your current report. And then the reveal is, if the little square is to the right of the midline, you want to investigate, are you overusing it? If it's to the left, you want to investigate, how can I accommodate that competency to have a smoother transition, to get better at it? It's just an awareness piece and an aha moment. I think that the competency sections start to customize your report. So if you're working with a leadership team, you might do communication, and you might do that exercise in one of the leadership competencies. For sure, every section of the report has questions, built-in questions. It makes your life easier. Have people pair up in the class and answer the questions, talk about it, get them thinking about utilizing their report. At the very end, there's a personal action plan. Start, stop, continue. This is the easiest 3 little steps for you to start to get behavioral change. Pick something you're going to stop, pick something you're going to start, and pick some behavior that you'll continue that you see as successful. Once again, that can be assigned as homework. I know that's a bad word, but I believe in it because you want people to keep working on their stuff.
And I think we talked about how to use the report and definitely use the interactivity, use the report itself. But we would also like to remind you, don't use all the report. I mean, our goal is to get them to interact with the report and maybe highlight some specific sections like Wilma was mentioning, like leadership. But you don't want to like overwhelm them, because we want to remind people that report itself is dynamic, that you're going to get out of the report certain sections that are going to connect to you more so now. And then down the line, maybe your roles change. Maybe you have a new manager. Go back and revisit the report. Maybe other sections like motivators and strengths are parts of the report that might stand out to you more at that point in time.
I think that's a really good point, because these pages can be overwhelming, and at 38 pages, you're like, whoa. So see what works for you. This is the last one that I think is an easy one to apply DISC to the report. When people are sitting there in the class, get them to pick one behavior. I've got a few examples here, depending on the style. Did I do my best to, and track it for a week? Get an accountability partner. Say you have a D style. Maybe it's, did I do my best to be a patient listener? Did I do my best I style to practice follow-up? Did I do my best S style to speak up? Did I do my best C style to be less critical? They can add, did I do my best to, be the fountain, not the drain? Whatever they want on the do my best. But the accountability piece starts to bring awareness of that one behavior they're going to start to work on. So that's an easy, I usually put it, just so you know, in an Excel spreadsheet, have it pop up in their phone, maybe use technology, get them to be aware. The accountability partner will also bring it home. Okay, step 3. This is the section where you start to identify styles, right? We want people, and we have a lot of different, we have a lot of different activities for identifying styles, right? You want people to start moving into step 3 is more where the action, where you start to do application. So a couple of things. Christina showed in the VIP where we have behavioral recognition practices. You don't have to write them yourself. There are all kinds of them. You can divide people up in group. They have a little short reading. You can do it as a whole group and start to get the context clues of what this person's style is. If you're doing this virtually, send them into breakout rooms. If you're doing it in a large group, pair people up in small groups. Work through and start identifying. This is another one. We call it choose and defend. It's quickly, you don't really need even this. You can have people on the spur of their, in that moment, and you want to do a check-in. Pick a D, I, S, and C, famous maybe, what represents a D, an I, an S, and a C, and then they have to support it or defend it. Now, Christina mentioned this a little bit earlier. If somebody has, they say, oh, I think a D style is a big Chevy truck because it's so easygoing and kind and modest. What I'm using words which we would typically or stereotypically use for an S, rather than make the person wrong for me to be right, what I'll do is correct them with the connector word and I would say, and it's big and it owns the road and it's bold and it's decisive. They're like, yeah. Now that person isn't very clear on what the D style is. Another one is getting pictures of either famous people, go through them quickly to guess their style. If you work in an organization and you know styles of people they will know, like maybe the senior leadership team, this is valuable information. People can guess it, but make sure you know what they are if you're doing the leadership team so you don't mislead anybody. You don't have to only do people. We often use cars because people can relate to cars. Okay, this next section to me, the adjusting piece, that is the end game. That's what we really are trying to get people to move towards, is adjusting. It is possible, but it takes energy and it takes focus, and you have to start getting in the practice. People who are great adjusters, that didn't just happen. They've put some energy behind that and you'll also notice people who are great adjusters are great communicators. Have you ever had that manager that everybody likes to work with? Most likely that manager is a great adjuster, because we know that communication is ascribed to the receiver and they're probably fluid at moving into adjusting.
And I think what's so important about getting to this step, we call this the application step. It's like taking all the information from steps 1, 2, and 3, and then really being able to apply it and know what to do when they go back out into the real world. And, with extended disc, we're primarily known for being a report that not only focuses on the strengths of your styles, but we also help you identify perhaps some development areas and challenges of your style. And I know someone on the webinar today just made a comment that a person was emotionally upset in terms of reading their report. And part of why we do these activities is we're helping people process and interpret the information. And sometimes it just takes time. So giving themselves a chance to do these activities, it helps them personally process versus just kind of going through a session and kind of passively listening. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I know that when you're working in coaching and facilitating, sometimes people do cry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not saying in a disc, most people come into a disc session and it's super fun and they love learning about the most important person in their life, themselves. So that part works really well. If you do have someone that is crying, hold the space for that and remind them they're not broken. They're not here to be fixed. They're successful. They have that style and it works for them. And like all of us, our style works for us until it doesn't.
Yep.
And that's when you need to start to do the adjusting. Okay, so step 4, my all-time favorite worksheet. To me, this worksheet is the greatest. It's called my communication strategy worksheet. And basically, what is it? It's just creating a simple plan for effective adjustments. If you have time to do it in your class, that's even better. because you can guarantee completion. So it starts off that you have them choose a person. I always say a person that they work with. Either they want to get the relationship better or that they're having a challenging time with that person. So they first go through and identify that person's style. Then they have, like I said, a start, stop, continue. This is actually, it's a to do, a don't do, and a continue. But I wanted you to see the first top of the page. So then built into your report in that section 4 are built-in adjustments, and get them to go back to that section, pull out adjustments. They don't have to reinvent the wheel. They've got some ideas. But this is a really easy one. It is located on the Client Resource Center. Anything you want to add about this?
Yeah, I mean, the continue to do, I think, is sometimes we think, well, isn't that extra? It's important because we do things well when we interact with specific colleagues and people, but what happens is we forget to do it. So the continue is actually a way to reinforce ourselves to ourselves that, hey, there are some things that work with, when I interact with Wilma, but I need to remember to keep doing it.
Mhm.
And you're gonna, some of your trainers are gonna be like, oh, wow, they keep showing like the exercises look all the same. They are, in a sense, they're all very similar because DISC itself is about interaction. And interaction at a level is very simple. And all we need to do is, we already know how to do it. It's just, we're offering you different ways for your participants to practice doing it.
And do it consistently.
Exactly.
Okay, so this is an exercise. It's called How Do I Relate? And it really fits into step 3 and step 4. I put it in step 4 because of the third question. Really, you want to get people to start thinking about people in their lives. That's the D, I, S, and C. Then there's questions that come in. Who do you find it easiest to communicate with? What makes it easy? Typically, the answer is, I find it easiest to communicate with people who have a similar style to my own because we do things in a similar fashion. Who do you find it most challenging? Quite often the response will be, I find it more challenging to interact with people who are opposites. I will remind you, if it's a husband and wife team or a partner team or a significant other team, quite often opposites attract. So it will totally blow out your theory on that. They'll like, yes, but that person finishes my sentences and we don't want to go there.
Yes.
So remember, get yourself off the hook if that's the case. My husband and I, we are opposite, chalk and cheese, and yet we communicate well together because we appreciate the differences. How does this worksheet work in the step 4? What adjustments would you now make to better interact with this person? Great group activity. Get your people in small little groups and start applying. What would I do with the D, I, S, C? Have them discuss it. And it works like a charm. And people like to work in small groups because they are processing. They are getting through all of this information that you have sent them. Light switch, so fun. If this is a larger team that I was working with, and the way the light switch game works, and it's such an easy game, is you divide everybody up. All your D's go together, all your I's, all your S's, and all your C's start to hang out together. And what happens is you have them write out a list of what lights them up, like what do they like, and what shuts them down, what do they not like. And you give them some time, like I give them 10 minutes to get into their 4 corners and write lists. And then they come back and they reveal what works for them. And it's really funny. You'll find people are laughing because some people will say, I like well-organized meetings. Oh, please. Another group will say, don't invite me to a meeting. As a matter of fact, I'd like to stay home. Or what they don't like. I don't like people interrupting me. And another crowd might say, well, hurry up and get it, spit it out then, right? So you'll start to see the different styles show up. Very easy game, not much needs done, like no equipment or anything like that.
And again, all of these, we've written out instructions, and if there's handouts that are needed, you can download them all from the VIP client resource site.
Okay, so this next activity, you'll see the little picture there. This is a purchase thing. It's a deck of cards. There's 4 decks of cards. But role playing is significant opportunity to actually move into your class. And the reason why I would say role playing, all the C's in your class are going to go, oh, ugh. But most people will embrace this opportunity. And the reason why they embrace it is because at the end, they recognize with energy and focus, I can do it. And it's difficult at times. So cut yourself a break. The red deck of cards is actually role playing. They have a number of cards that have a D, I, S, and C, and then they have situational role plays in them. What I do is, oh yes, and there's a typo on that, role plays. I thought I was using dice.
Okay, are you a C style? Did you catch that?
I love that. I like to have one mistake on my PowerPoints because anyone in the C style feels good about finding it, and then I just roll with it. So role plays, the red deck will have a situational one. It could be, say, Christina, her primary style is S, and I would give her then a D card, an opposite card. And I would say maybe the situational role play would be, how would you
Pack
provide
for vacation.
or pack for vacation or provide like customer service? And so then she has to act it out, and then everybody else has to do the activity.
What I like about these cards is, number one, they're portable, right? So sometimes when we're doing trainings, we just want to we just need one more activity, or we just want to pick up the energy in the session. I just pull out a card. And what's great about these cards is that you clients have actually figured out different ways to use these cards. And so I actually compiled your suggestions and created a set of instructions for thinking outside the box. You guys are awesome. So how to use these cards beyond just the original intent. So that's also on the VIP site.
Oh, very good. Okay. You can see the color-coded cards, right? The yellow deck is a trivia game, and we often utilize that game in our check-ins, those at the very beginning. And then the blue and green game really is interchangeable. It's an opportunity. You hold a card up, it has a word, and your group will dictate or direct you to put it in a D, I, S, or C pile. It's a lot of fun to get role playing, and once you get that started, people usually enjoy it. I usually try to make eye contact with the I in the audience because they're usually the easiest one to get started on a role play.
And I always say, if you're ever bored, you can actually use these as real cards and play solitaire because they are cards.
That's good. Okay. Whoops. So one of the things, we've mentioned this at the beginning, but we want to just highlight, utilize the resources. You do not have to make this a big work project for yourself. There are all kinds of resources available to you. I think the biggest challenge will be synthesizing down to what you really want to use. On Pinterest, there are all kinds of infographics that we have. This is an idea of the videos. There are more than these videos that are located on the site, probably 3 or 4 or 5 additional ones that you can utilize.
And we also post them on Instagram as well. So if you want to, we just created a new video called 5 Myths of Dis. So that got posted. It was good on Instagram. So you'll find it there.
Right.
VIP resource site. Don't forget it.
She works really hard on updating that and keeping that going.
So yeah, we do try to update it as often as possible. We've tried to, but there's a lot of information. So hopefully we have separated them into kind of functional sections for you. And I always say, that's a great place for resources, but we trainers are also resources for you as well. So we don't expect you to deliver DISC alone. And I think that's one of the great things about being at Extended Disc and using Extended Disc assessments.
Yes. And I would also, if you're feeling like a little bit of caution in getting started, our experience is most people like their disc reports or their disc sessions. Okay, quick little review. Christina just said, use the Extended Disc client resource site. It's your best friend and it makes your life easy. And so why wouldn't you use it? Create a plan, get that master plan going and get started on that. Build your program. What works for you? What works for your audience? What works for your organization? What are you trying to achieve? Execute. Get that, make it fun, and make sure that you're doing some follow-up with that. And then I think one of the things that we often forget is that we're not celebrating our own success. So make sure that you do celebrate your success. It is an achievement to have a successful disc program because you're helping them go out and have probably more successful interactions.
So I saw some questions, and absolutely we are recording this, and just give me a little bit of a day or so, maybe beginning of next week. Because you registered for this webinar, you'll automatically get a link to watch the video recording. So it will be recorded. Thanks again for joining us. Thank you, Wilma, for coming and joining us and sharing all the activities that we have. We do have an upcoming webinar. It goes along with our 4 steps to effective interactions, and it's actually step 2, which is, I can't remember it. Oh, is this really me? Understanding our own disc style. So Wilma and Amy just did step 1. Don't worry if you missed it. You can still go to step 2. We'll come around and go to step 3, step 4, and step 1 comes back again. So again, just to reiterate, if you have any questions about registering for the VIP client resource site or about assessments, you can contact customer service at extendeddisc.org, or you can find a lot of information on our public website, which is www.extendeddisc.org.
Thank you very much for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.
Have a wonderful one.